Well, now we're joined by Tony Wood, who is the CEO of Meggitt and, of course, the President of ADS. And Tony's going to talk to me today about setting out the outlook for our industry and our priorities for 2021. Very warm welcome to you today, Tony.
It's great to be here.
So usually we have the pleasure of seeing you in a bow tie at the ADS annual dinner. Of course, things are a bit different for us this year. But I do remember at the dinner last year, you talked very well and very clearly about the 3 S's: strategy, sustainability and skills. Where do you think we are today, Tony, on those priorities?
Well, it's been quite a year like no other, as we all know. But those strategy, sustainability and skills priorities are as important today to our activities across the 4 sectors that we represent as they are to our partnership with government. I would put forward to our members that the real focus is how do we accelerate. We have to find a way to build back, how to restore growth and how to accelerate some of the ambitions that sit behind those relatively simple 3 priorities, but which are huge areas for us. On strategy, we're an innovation and technology-led industry. We always have been. How do we accelerate some of the activity to accelerate research and technology investments in the sector? How do we accelerate the industrialization benefits of the work that we've been doing in partnership with government to find better ways of realizing some of those great designs? And how do we find a way to enable the spillover benefits that go to the wider base in the UK of all of the products in service and the support and services that they're provided with over many, many years. So very important on those 3. I'm going to sneak in a 4th if I can today, and that is the focus now is all about how do we restore growth. So how do we essentially get strength back in as the 4th S? And strength is about getting this partnership with government. Many of our civil aerospace businesses particularly, even though they've benefited from some exposure perhaps to defence and security and space sectors, it's the damage and the battering really that civil aerospace has taken over the last year that we have to emerge from. And that is our focus with government as to how do we build that partnership to restore strength coming out of this pandemic.
Well, we're of course hopeful for what the future will hold. However, we have faced significant impacts as an industry. Just wondering, Tony, if you could tell us your perspective about the events of the last year, which has been pretty tough for us all.
Yeah, I mean, it really has been a tough year for the country and for all of the 4 sectors that operate. Trying to keep businesses running as has been shown by remarkable resilience and adaptability on the businesses that have kept their doors open, kept supporting the armed forces and the customers that have obviously continued to fly with freight and a lot of global activity still continuing. But I think I want to start really with 3 thank yous. I mean, the partnership with government across all businesses, not just our sectors, has benefited from the focus on furlough support, the focus on loan support, and also specifically in our defence and security sectors, obviously the announcement of the defence reviews and the increase in spending of about 10% over the next 4 years. So some good things have been done, but my real concern is that we've been reminded of the fact that the world is not a level playing field, and the actions taken in France, in Germany, and also latterly in the United States, with a specific focus within those actions on support and funding for aerospace, is something we really do need to conclude and find the way forward on in the UK. But I think the most acute focus is how do we get the world flying again? And the government have been working, Department for Transport, for quite some months now. We're expecting, obviously, to hear in the Global Travel Task Force exactly what the conditions are going to be to provide a sustainable network, an opportunity to start travelling again as soon as possible. And that really is what our civil aerospace members really need most.
Absolutely, we need to get people flying again, and of course you mentioned the UK's place in the world and the importance of our sectors in that global industry. How does aerospace fare?
Well, ADS represents some 375,000 employees across the UK in all of the sectors we operate, and about 250,000 of those are in aerospace and defence. And it's an amazing industry. Some 90% of that activity happens outside of the southeast of England, and 65% of the defence activity is happening again in the Midlands and in the north of England. If you ever wanted a bullseye for an industry to focus on the levelling up agenda, this is very much it in terms of where the employment sits. But the concern is that, I've been in this industry for several decades now, and a decade ago the UK sat at number 2 in the world in civil aerospace, about a 17% market share. That number today, as we exit the pandemic, is around 12%, and our position is now 4th, behind 2 of our European partners who've just crept ahead, sitting behind the United States. That really is a challenge for us, but it is an enormous opportunity. And with the advent of sustainable aviation, with the great companies that we've got across the United Kingdom, it's about how do we partner with government in a challenging time for business to invest, to really focus on some of the opportunities like sustainable aviation to get the growth back into the industry and start winning for the future.
So going back to your second S, sustainability, of course, this year is a landmark year for the UK, with the eyes of the world looking at us with COP26 coming up in Glasgow in November. What can we look forward to as we emerge from the current crisis with respect to sustainability?
Well, as I've said, this is an amazing industry. It's proven itself to create some phenomenal innovative solutions to some of the problems of how do you enable flight. I mean, we've gone from the propeller to the jet engine. That was a 50-year journey. 70 years later, we're now very much in the foothills of the opportunity to make the next transition to fully sustainable travel by air. And we can look with some optimism and enthusiasm at the fact that 80% of the world's population still have to take their first flight. Our opportunity in the UK, with the great industries that we have, is to enable that to happen sustainably. And this isn't something that happens in several decades' time. Within this decade, certainly at the small end of air travel, we're going to see fully sustainable designs. And that's really why we're focusing our conversation with government on not just the sustainable incremental improvements every year, but those radical improvements in aircraft propulsion technologies and in aircraft fuels, sustainable aviation fuels that the Secretary of State was just talking about. Those 2 areas are what are required and where we need to invest to make that step change. And the ask is that that's going to require a doubling of the investment in the Aerospace Technology Institute, which has been very well supported by government over the last few years. But to make that step and re-level our playing field with our competitors around the world, we have a unique opportunity. We're at an inflection point to do that now, to speed the growth as we emerge from the pandemic.
So if we can now move on to defence and security. Of course, this week has been busy, as I just discussed with the Secretary of State, and we've got Deborah Haynes speaking a bit later on in this session. So we see great potential related to the defence and security sectors. And what do you think the recent announcements, Tony, on defence spending and the government's integrated review that we heard about this week, what does that really mean for our industry?
So there have been some really important announcements in defence, and whilst there are always areas that we'd like to see slightly better levels of investment or more focus, I think primarily the fact that defence spending for the next 4 years through the Defence Spending Review has been committed, has been increased by around 10% per year. That's a big plus. Secondly, the integrated review that emerged earlier this week has really 3 important points that we in ADS and across industry have been pushing for. The first one is that we should not be moving to a default solution of global competition when the UK is looking to purchase defence capability and security capability. And there's a tremendous amount of investment and the opportunity of government to invest in the UK, build that industrial base and get as much benefit from that as they can. So very encouraged by this move away from default competition. Secondly, encouraged by the focus on R&D. That is the core of all of our industries, but very much in defence. And thirdly, actually something that we've seen other nations do very effectively, but a move back to a focus on government-to-government led export activity. And that's one big area where the UK has shown in the past how good it can be. So very positive on that. We still have an armed forces network in the UK that are going to be spending some £85 billion across our industry over the next 4 years, and we really would like to see some of those new principles that are laid out in the integrated review coming to fruition. So we'll be monitoring that carefully, but I think some good news there that we can focus on.
And of course, some of the announcements on defence also included space, as you just mentioned, so a really key area for ADS, a cutting edge of technology, very exciting developments, and an opportunity for our country and for government and ADS to work together. Could you tell us a bit about the plans ADS has for our members in this sector, in the space sector?
Yeah, well, as you rightly say, space is absolutely an increasing focus for the UK, as laid out in the Prime Minister's National Space Strategy, which was also something we were asking for. There are hundreds of companies that ADS represents that have activities in the space sector. The government's showing real commitment, not just to their investment in OneWeb, for instance, on the satellite side, but also a commitment to get launch capability for space, which is something that really will take us forwards. But it's a critical sector, and ADS is going to be increasing its focus and standing up a board to make sure that members get the proper representation there, and that we get better access to around £300 billion worth of activity across the UK, economic activity, that's underpinned by, for instance, the satellite activity, which is obviously a very key part of the space sector. So increasing focus for the future in space.
Well, thank you today for joining us, Tony. It's been amazing to listen to you. And let's remember your 4 S's. So we've got strategy, sustainability, skills, and all-important strength. The topics we've discussed today are some of the most important for the future of our sectors and the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.